Today is a very autumnal, spooky day outside. It has been raining for the entire day. It's also getting kind of colder here in Barcelona. So I thought it was a perfect time to plan my autumnal TBR. I think I'm going to start with one of the most read genres during this season. The first book that I'm going to talk about is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This year during summer I read Gods of Jet and Shadow by Silvia Moreno Garcia, and I really enjoyed how easy it was to follow the story and how easy it was to get invested in the story. And everyone says that this is her best novel, Mexican Gothic. The next one is a horror classic, and it's The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. I've read We Have Always Lived in a Castle by Shirley Jackson. That book wasn't my favorite. Actually, when I read the book, I didn't like it at all, and I kept thinking, why do people like this book so much? But I read that book 2 years ago and I still think about this book till this day. That book has something magical, like that book haunts me in some way. I do think that I liked it more than I think I did, because I still think about that book. I'm really intrigued to read this book and see if I have the same feelings that I have with We Have Always Lived in the Castle. And no, I haven't watched the Netflix series. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be able to watch it alone. I need to find someone that wants to watch it with me. Then the next book is Bunny by Monna Awad. There's so many people on BookTube that talk about this book so much. Everyone says that it's the most weird book they have ever read. So I'm intrigued to see how that's possible, because I mean there's so many weird books out there. I think this book is also dark academia, and I love dark academia. Then another book that is a mix between dark academia and horror is The Furies by Katie Lowe. This book I think is set in a boarding school, and I love that kind of books, like boarding schools, dark academia. That's the best combination. I love these books. By the way, I'm going to read like 90% of these books on my Kindle. That's why I'm not showing you the physical copies. I pretty much read all my books on my Kindle now. Now moving on to dark academia. I feel like dark academia really blew up like 2-3 years ago when a lot of authors started writing dark academia books, and I love that because dark academia is one of my favorite subgenres. I think there's so many good opportunities to write with dark academia. I have read like the blueprint of dark academia, The Secret History by Donna Tartt, but my favorite dark academia book of all time is If We Were Villains by Emil Rio. I have also read Dead Poets Society, but that book is an adaptation from the movie. I have also seen the movie. The movie and the book both are amazing. I don't know why I'm giving you recommendations right now, but what I'm trying to say is that we are getting more and more dark academia books. I'm really happy about it. One dark academia book that I want to read is Ace of Spades by Faridah, àbíké-íyímídé. I love that this book is a combination of so many different things that I love, and also that it is a dark academia but set in a more modern setting, because we don't get that often. The next one is They Never Learn by Layne Fargo. I saw Kat from Paperback Dreams read this book and she rated it like 4 or 5 stars. So I think that's a really good review. And the last dark academia book that I have on this list is Vicious by Schwab. So this book is a duology actually, but I've seen a lot of people say that they wouldn't recommend the second book. So I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I like reading books back to back, like book series back to back. So I think I'm going to read the first one, and if I completely love it, I may not read the second one, but if I just like it, I think I'm going to read the second one. I don't know, like I hate whenever I read a book and then I read the continuation of the book and it's just bad. All the books I have in this list are series. So the first one is a book that I'm actually currently reading. I have it on my nightstand, and it's The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. I'm loving this book so much. Like, honestly guys, I don't want to say that this is going to be like a 5-star, but I think it's going to be a 5-star. I already knew it was going to be a slow-paced book with a lot of descriptions, but I just didn't know they were going to be so beautiful and so fun to read. And having such a great time reading this book. And also I have this playlist on Spotify that is like a fairy playlist, like it's a forest magical fantasy playlist, and I think it's amazing. I just listen to the playlist while I read the book, and it's just the best combination ever. I'm just having such a great time reading this book. The next series that I have here, I actually don't know the name of the series, but the first book is The Raven Boys by Maggie, stiefvater. There's 4 books in this series, and this is also dark academia. we all know I love dark academia. I feel like this is also a booktube favorite, and everyone says that the third book is the best one. And then a series that it is actually a booktube favorite, and this is actually the one that I'm most excited to read. I think it's the first one I'm going to pick from the entire list, and is The Infernal Devices by Cassandra Clare. The first one is a Clockwork Angel, I believe, and I actually want to buy this book physically, like I want to own the physical copy. I read the entire Mortal Instruments on my Kindle, but I just have this feeling that I'm going to love The Infernal Devices so much. When it comes to fantasy series, I tend to buy like 99% of them on my Kindle, because otherwise I don't physically have the space to have them on my bookshelves. I know this book series has a love triangle. I don't really know how I feel about love triangles. In real life, I hate them so much, but in books, I don't know. I don't really have an opinion about them. Uy, que me caigo. I almost fell down and I'm sitting down. And the next book series that I want to read is a book series that I've been meaning to read for the past 2 years around this time, but I never got around to picking it up, and it's The Diviners by Libba and Bray. I'm kind of discouraged to read this series because I feel like a lot of people don't like the ending, and I just don't want to pick up a series to then not like the ending, but I feel like I should read it and just make an opinion of my own. Then moving on to mystery thrillers. I never know how to separate them, so I always say mystery thrillers. The first one is The Project by Courtney. This is a cult book. I really like reading about cults because if you didn't know, I grew up in a cult, but I think it's going to be exciting to read a book about a fictional cult and see how many things I can relate to. The next one is Final Girls by Riley Sager. I haven't read any of his books. From what I can see on BookTube, his books are more of a hit or miss. Not all of his books are amazing, but from all of his books, I feel like this is the book that everyone likes the most. And then the last mystery thriller book is a book that I actually physically own, and it's Fall is Fair by Hannah Capin. I think this is a Macbeth retelling. I've actually read Macbeth by Shakespeare. It's one of my favorite plays by him. So if this is actually a retelling of Macbeth, this book is going to be pretty interesting, and the story I think is going to be pretty wild. I actually physically own every single one of these classics, but I just have them on my bookshelves and I don't want to get up and pick them up. The first one is Wuthering by Emily Bronte. I started reading this book last autumn, but I just couldn't really get into it, so I put it down for the time being, and now I'm going to pick it up again with a new mindset. I know what the story is about: Heathcliff, Catherine, toxic relationships. The next one is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I also know what this book is about because I've seen the movie. I think it's going to be very interesting to read the surroundings, like the nature descriptions, the atmosphere, because in the movie they were amazing. I just heard a thunder and my dog hates thunder and lightning. Here she is. ¿Estás bien, cariño? Oh, my poor thing. She's going to hide under the bed, and she's hiding under the bed now. The next one is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I bought a beautiful second-hand copy this winter and I still haven't read it, and the book is actually pretty short. I tried watching the movie twice, but I fell asleep the 2 times, so I didn't know the ending until someone spoiled the ending for me. I feel like The Great Gatsby has an amazing ending, and imagine being able to read the ending for the first time without knowing anything about it. Can't relate because I got spoiled. The next one is A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce. I will either love or hate this book because people either love or hate James Joyce. I, for example, love Ernest Hemingway's writing. Like, I love his books, not him as a person. So I don't know why I feel like if I like Hemingway, I would like James Joyce. And don't ask me why, because I'm pretty sure they have nothing in common. This is just a prediction that I have. Maybe someone is watching this video thinking, honey, they have nothing in common. Probably, I don't know. The next one is Classic Tales of Horror by Edgar Allan Poe. I bought this book in 2019 and I still haven't read it. I actually read the introduction and I didn't know that Edgar Allan Poe married his cousin. Like, it has like a small biography on the introduction, and he did some very weird things. The next one is a Spanish classic. It's a Spanish play that I have already read. I read it when I was in school and I really enjoyed it, and it's Don Juan Tenorio by Jose Zorrilla. In Spain we have this tradition where November 1st this play is represented, sometimes even in cemeteries. If you've read this play you will know why this play is played in cemeteries, but this play is really good. If you can find a translation to your language, I would recommend reading Don Juan Tenorio. And also Don Juan Tenorio has been an inspiration for a lot of Don Juan stories. I think this is an important classic that you should read if you really want to get into classics. And then a horror classic is A Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. When I bought this book this winter, I knew I needed to save it for autumn. People say that it's very slow paced, but I don't mind slow-paced books as long as the writing is beautiful, or at least the characters or the plot are interesting. Like, slow-paced books are very nice to read if they're well done. And then the last two classics that I want to read are Little Women and Good Wives by Louisa May Alcott. I feel like Little Women is a very well-loved classic, especially after the 2019 movie. I feel like everyone read the classic and everyone loved it. Growing up, I used to watch the 90s movie all the time, and when the 2019 movie came out, I just felt so nostalgic of when I was younger and I used to watch the other movie. But I just feel like Little Women is such a wholesome book, and Good Wives is the sequel, is the story of when they're all grown up. And also I have my sister's copy of Little Women, so I think it's going to be very interesting to read that book from her copy. There's some books that have also been translated to English, but I'm going to read them in Spanish. So all these books are by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. He is the author of The Shadow of the Wind. I know everyone loves that book because it's actually a really good book, but I just want people to read his backlist. Like, he has so many good books. So these three books are the three books that he wrote at the very beginning of his career. So they are not like the best ones. They're like not in the same level as The Shadow of the Wind, but they are still good books. I have actually read one of them, and it's The Prince of the Mist. This book, in my opinion, it's an amazing book. I think it's going to be a book that I'm going to start recommending to people. If you like paranormal, gothic, horror books, this book is going to be for you. Carlos Ruiz Zafón does an amazing job getting you into the story, into the atmosphere. When I finished reading this book, I was mesmerized by his writing. It's amazing. The next book is The Midnight Palace. I don't know if I'm translating these books correctly. I'm just literally translating them from Spanish to English, and sometimes with translations people decide to change the titles. You know how it goes. But the second book, I actually started reading this book, but I didn't really get into it. And apparently this is one of his lowest rated books ever, because this is one of his first works that I want to read the entire book and just make an opinion of my own. But it's true that this book is kind of confusing, like I'm very lost with the book right now. And lastly we have The September Lights. I still haven't read this book, so I don't have any opinions about it, but hopefully it's going to be more as The Prince of the Mist and I will love it as well. And lastly, the last genre that I have is non-fiction, and I only have one book for non-fiction, and it's The Witches, Salem 1692 by Stacy Schiff. I love reading books about witches. I love reading books about Salem. One of my Patreon tiers is The Coven of Salem. I've read a lot of books about the Salem witch trials, and I just think it's mind-blowing that something like that happened for so many years. And I love reading books about witches, non-fiction, fiction. I just think witches are very interesting. So those are all the books that I plan on reading during the season of autumn, during spooky season if you will. There's so many books I don't even know where to begin to read them. I'm really excited for this list. I think it's actually a pretty good list. I know I'm going to at least get to half of the books. I hope you guys liked this video, and I will see you guys soon. Bye!